Welcome this afternoon to your business news. The High Court has interdicted government from seizing certain plant-based food products from supermarket shelves. It's a victory for the Consumer Goods Council of South Africa. Now, government argued that the labelling of products such as nuggets and sausages use terms associated with meat and could confuse consumers. Let's talk now to Neo Momodu from the Consumer Goods Council of South Africa. Neo, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. What does this interdict mean for consumers looking for their plant-based products in store?
Thank you, Palestine, and good afternoon to your viewers as well. What it means is that consumers can now, for a long time, be comfortable that the products that they like will be available in shelves. As you know, we, as the Consumer Goods Council, we represent members that are in the retail and manufacturing industry and the services that actually provide the services in those sectors. And our concern came when the department actually wrote to us around the 22nd of August, indicating that they were going to seize meat analog products, as you say, those that are like nuggets, but they're not necessarily meat, they're alternatives to meat products, without giving us ample warning. They wrote to us on a Wednesday, and they said by Monday we'll be going to retail stores to seize these products. And obviously this would have caused chaos, not only for the consumer, but also for our members, who, a lot of them who trade these products are small SMME companies that they would have had to all of a sudden, stop production lines, jobs may have been lost, and as well, there would have been some wastages of the products that already were produced. So it's a victory for us, because it shows that, the judge, the court was very concerned about the fact that government wanted to act beyond their powers in an environment where there are no regulations for meat analog products. And that was the case for us, to say that we know that meat is regulated. Meat analogs are not regulated in South Africa, and without a regulatory regime, you cannot go and seize those products because you don't have a leg to stand on.
Before we get to the regulation, government argued, like you said just now, that the labels such as nuggets or sausages on plant-based products could confuse consumers. What do you make of this? Do you think that's a valid argument?
Well, we did research as the Consumer Goods Council. It was backed by the Advertising Regulatory Board, which regulates advertising in South Africa, to say that there has not been one case, since the establishment or the introduction of these products onto the market where consumers claim that they were confused by these products. So the claim was not really necessarily true. And even after we just before we went to court, we did another research through our members, with consumers. Consumers know exactly what it is that they buy. They go for these products because they're looking for alternatives, mainly because they're vegetarian, or they just want a different taste. So ours is to say the product is not necessarily better than meat. But what we're saying is that there needs to be that choice for those consumers that do not necessarily want to consume what we know as meat, and they want to be given that opportunity to actually have that choice. So we have not come across, through research by ourselves and other authentic organizations like the ARB, that have come to us and actually backed us in this court case, to say that there isn't that confusion on the market, and it's just something that the department, I don't know if they have research to back it up. Thanks.
You mentioned some of the implications to the industry earlier for if this court action was to be successful, in the sense that these products had to be pulled from the market. Just explain to us, give us a picture. How big is this industry? How many jobs are we talking about here?
Well, I don't have the actual numbers, but you would be aware that a number of the big retailers would have a section in their stores where they actually have the meat analog products, right? And then over and above that, you have what we normally call the SMMEs, your mom and pop shops, that actually are starting to provide these products. And as you know, this is a worldwide phenomenon where anywhere you go in the world, these products are growing by their numbers. So I think it's a multi-billion rand industry, bearing in mind that it's not just the products themselves. There's packaging, there's logistics, there's all sorts of the value chain and supply chain considerations to be taken into account. And the number of jobs, when we actually looked at this, it could come to about in their thousands, about 500,000 jobs, because in the big tail retailers, you have people that actually deal with these products. But again, those that are suppliers to these retailers, actually some of them really depend on the livelihood of this type of business. And without government actually conducting what we call a socio-economic impact study on what the realities of pulling these products from the market would have been, it really would have been premature. And actually it would have been really devastating for an industry that's still reeling from, the 18 months ago July riots in KZN and parts of Gauteng, COVID-19, the war on Ukraine. We're all going through harsh financial situations, and the consumer themselves, sometimes, when consumers go for options, they go for options not out of luxury, but out of necessity, of the kind of things that they think will sustain them in this environment where it's very, very difficult to actually stretch the rent to make ends meet, given the diesel cost from load shedding, petrol cost, the cost of living is very, very high. And the point here really that I'd really like to make is that as South Africa, we really need to concentrate and really take our efforts and our energies where things matter. Right now, we should be thinking as a country, what are those things that we should be doing as a country to actually turn things around? It's not about meat analogs. It's not about, last week we had a huge submission that we made to the Department of Health that has to do with front of pack labeling. I think there is a misalignment and a lack of an understanding of the reality of what South Africans are facing from a government perspective. We're looking at regulations that are not going to change the economic and socio-economic factors of the people of this country. We are saying that please let's look at how we can jointly look at those solutions that are going to talk about job creation, reduction of unemployment and equality, and get to a point where we have some kind of economic advancement in this country. We cannot all just be hanging on to the fact that are we going to be downgraded? What is going? There's a lot of serious things that we need to be focusing on. And I know we're talking about meat analogs, and I'm saying that there's a bigger picture. We're happy about this court case because it begins to show that, firstly, the consumer has the right to make a choice. Secondly, government cannot willy-nilly act ultra-virus beyond their powers and actually exert a situation where, without a regulatory environment, you decide that you're going to seize meat analog products. So
Neo?
what we're calling for in this instance, yes.
Sorry to interrupt you there. I'm sorry to interrupt you there. Thank you. Just touching on something you said earlier, you were speaking about the regulation in this fairly new plant-based industry. Just in short, before we go, what exactly is still needed for better regulation, and why do you think regulation in this industry is needed?
Firstly, if you look at the rest of the world, there is a regulatory regime so that what should be in the ingredients, how you should package it, the information you should actually have on packaging. The rest of the world is going that way. We conducted a survey about 2 years ago, and we actually shared it with the department to say our members are not averse to regulations. In fact, where we have a regulatory environment that enables free trade, that enables fair conditions that to be in any market, we are for that. 85% of those surveys said we really would like to have these regulations. That information was shared with the department. And we did ask the department in the various consultations before they decided to seize the product to say, please put that regulatory regime in place. We said that in court. We're saying it now. And what we'd like to leave with you is that although the interdict, we've been granted the interdict, we are still, open to having those discussions with the department so that we have that regulatory environment that in the long term, South Africa can start operating in a global stage where they are competitive and they are like for like with those in other countries that are operating in the MIG analog. Without regulations, then you don't know whether your regulations, you should adopt the European one, the American one. You need our own, a truly South African regulation that can stand in par with the rest of the world so that our products, if we do export, they actually have that authenticity that it needs for it to be consumed in other markets.
Thank you so much, Neo, for your time. That was Neo Momodu from the Consumer Goods Council of South Africa.